I don't want to gloat. Okay, maybe I do. Just a little bit. Right? I mean, given what we've been through, we have a little bit of a right to just gloat a little bit here. And when you see the way the mainstream media is acting, my gosh, we have to take a little bit of a victory lap.
I don't know. I'm profoundly disturbed. I think if you look at the New York Times this morning, the headline was America makes a perilous choice. I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now.
We need to really take a step back and think about what does that say about us?
People who woke up this morning with a dream and are going to bed with a nightmare.
I'd like to know what that says about us as a country.
I am I'm mystified in some ways. Who are we as a country? And we're starting to find out. And from what I'm seeing right now, I'm not sure I like it.
Oh, but you know what? This is America. And again, I don't want to gloat too much because I actually think that we kind of need to move on and move forward and stuff. And like this kind of stuff, this isn't helping.
All the system stands for! All the system stands for!
Protests in Chicago, but you know what? No one's really listening. No one's really listening. And the media is like, oh gosh, we really screwed up. How could we possibly have gotten this one so wrong? So there are some out there, and it's a little bit surreal watching them right now. There are some out there that are trying to say, okay, well, yeah, we kind of messed this one up, and so maybe we need to rethink it, and so maybe we need to go back to some like logical stuff. But I don't trust them all the same. Because, I mean, if you're Joe Scarbourough, and you're on MSNBC every day, and you've got a lady friend that I guess is now your wife, who's out there shouting fascism, fascism, fascism from the rooftops.
Yeah. And guys, here's the warning. You all have set it up, but let me take it a step further, please, if I may. Mm-hmm. This is called normalization.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. This is the descent into fascism, if we so choose.
Okay. So that was like 2 days before the election. And Joe Scarborough, her husband, was, equally worried. But I want to show you what he's saying now. It's kind of like Morning Joe has now recognized that it's morning in America, and he's going to totally change his MO. He is a new man. I'm not buying it. And I actually think it's super Machiavellian and a little bit weird, but all of a sudden he's out there trying to talk common sense. Watch.
The Washington Post, Matt Bai, writes in part, I do think the prosecutions fed a narrative of Trump as a victim. I also think Democrats dug themselves into a hole on cultural issues and identity politics. Trump's vicious transgender ad in the closing weeks, she's for they, them, he's for you, was probably the most effective of the cycle. I think that probably landed with a lot of traditionally Democratic voters who feel like the party is consumed with the cultural issues, while the economic issues don't really change. I think people needed a reason to feel good and hopeful about voting for her, and absent that, a lot of frustrated voters apparently decided to go with the guy who wants to burn it all down.
Let's dig a little deeper, because you have that stacked on top of what happened on college campuses this fall, stacked on top of what's been happening on college campuses over the past 4 or 5 years. I have said this on the air, and every time I've said it, people said, oh, you're just saying that because you're a white conservative. No, I'm just saying it because every Democrat that we have ever...
He's conservative?
...sat down with dinner with over the past 5 years who have kids that go to colleges say their kids are afraid to speak in class because they'll be canceled.
Yeah, duh. So he starts going on about
again.
this, okay? Kids are afraid to speak in class because they'll be canceled. And these are Democrats that are afraid to speak. I mean, they're afraid to speak because let's be very clear. You were the guy out there telling everybody that if they had a different point of view on anything, that they were somehow the problem. Well, this is like the reincarnation of Joe Scarborough, ladies and gentlemen. We are watching in real time a complete turnaround. Here he is again, trying to sound normal.
The Washington Post, Matt Bai, writes in part, I do think.
And they're all Democrats. Everybody that we've had dinner with, if they have a kid in college, you can go, how are the Red Sox going? Yeah, fine, yeah. Sitting there eating. Beautiful day today, wasn't it? Yeah. You know, my daughter at University of Virginia, she's afraid to raise her hand in class because if she says something that's politically incorrect, she will immediately be canceled. She'll be shunned from class. She'll be destroyed in social media by noon. So they just sit in class quiet. Now, if any of you, which camera? Give me a camera to look at. Boom! Oh, look at that one. If any of you out there say, oh, that's just like a conservative, white, Southern guy, da-da-da, that's what you're losing. That's what you're losing. Because that's what I heard. And I didn't hear it from Republicans. I didn't hear it from Trumpers. I heard it from Democrats over the past 3 or 4 years. Their kids were afraid to talk in class and say something unpopular because they would be canceled. And it's an epidemic. Willie will tell you it happens in New York.
The Washington Post, Matt Bai, writes.
Yeah.
We still have an electorate, 70 million plus. We still have an electorate, 70 million plus, that will be voting for a man who said he was going to assassinate for treason the chairman of the Joint Chiefs because he didn't support him on January the 6th, who has said just in recent days he was going to execute Liz Cheney with a firing squad, 9 guns pointed and shooting at her face. A man who has said that he was going to shut down CBS because he didn't like how they edited an interview. A man who said he was going to be a dictator from day one. A man who said he was going to terminate the Constitution. A man who said he was going to use the army and he was going to use the National Guard on his political opponents. I literally could go on all day. And
okay, and you did. You went on all day, every single day, Joe, okay? And now you want to say, oh, it's the problem of we leaned in too hard to the trans thing. We were too tough on speech. You think? I mean, think about the media coverage itself. Our friends over at Media Research Center did some work on this. Democrat coverage, 78% positive for the entire race. I mean, if you just look at Kamala, it was like 80-something, 90-something. 2024 GOP coverage, only 15% positive. So they actually had a 63-point advantage. They actually had a massive advantage, and they still couldn't win it. So it's kind of remarkable, I guess. People like Scarborough are waking up saying, okay, what went wrong? Well, maybe we need to tack in a different direction. I think you do, guys. I think you do, but it's not just Scarborough, right? It's the entire apparatus. It's all of the media. I got more because I need to show you the fight that's unfolding there in real time on The View. I mean, they're going back to being the fighting ladies there on The View because they were always getting kind of boring, right? They were just in sync about how much they hated Donald Trump. But before I do, you may have seen that the Federal Reserve announced it is cutting rates by another quarter point. Listen, any way you slice this, and I think it's going to be great to have Donald Trump there, and we're going to have some really good economic policies. It's one of the reasons why I think more than ever you want to be investing right now. But any way you slice it, we still are doing a lot of money printing, and you still have a lot of nations around the world saying, hey, wait a second, is there a way for me to diversify out of the US dollar? And so central banks are increasingly going to gold. Well, if you're interested in going to gold and diversifying your portfolio through gold, I encourage you to call my friends over at American Hartford Gold. You can text my name and get more information about the free silver offer. For qualifying offers, you can get up to $15,000 right now in free silver. Just text Trish, T-R-I-S-H, to 65532 or call them at 1-844-495-1115, 1-844-495-1115. Or you can just go to Trish Loves Gold, trishlovesgold.com, because you can't forget that. Anyway, all of them are just, they're doing this sort of navel gazing thing, and they're like, where do we go wrong? Like, we don't understand. We kept saying this over and over and over again. He's so bad. He's so awful. And yet, what do you know? Like, minorities were going for him. I was looking at some data, for example, you look at Native Americans in Oklahoma, Native Americans were going for him. I mean, even with all the talk about Elizabeth Warren, et cetera, Latinos overwhelmingly went for him. And a lot of Black Americans voted for him. In fact, when you look at some of the numbers coming out of New York City in the boroughs like the Bronx and Queens, I mean, Republicans have never seen numbers like this. And then I'm just looking through the numbers. I was talking with Dinesh D'Souza on his podcast a little earlier today about this. I mean, New Jersey, he was down 16 points last time around. Now he's down only 5. California, he was down 29 points last time around. Now he's down just 17. And you look at New Hampshire, again, like he's actually gaining ground. And why is that? Think about it.
I mean, the bottom line is this. At this particular hour, if you believe the polling, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance with Black voters since Richard Nixon back in 1960. Not 68, since 1960. That's 64 years ago. Among Hispanic voters, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance for Republicans since 2004 and George W. Bush.
It was amazing. It was like everybody came together. I mean, they didn't even listen to Debbie Dingell trying to tell us that somehow that Donald Trump was going to lock up Muslims all over the country. I mean, they're actually, you want to talk about misinformation, disinformation. I mean, this woman's highly irresponsible and CNN's giving her a big platform. Here we go.
And the Arab American community needs to be reminded and cannot forget. He wants to ban Muslims, he wants to deport Muslims, and he wants to start internment camps. And that's what we are busy talking to every voter. He's telling you what he's going to do. Believe him.
Internment camps?
Yes, Jake's like, what?
He has talked internment camps. You know what, Jake? You may have to visit me in one. I get worried enough when he talks about what he's going to do to his political enemies. But he has talked about them in this.
So the gaslighting was so intense. And what's incredible is that no one bought it. The American population said, yeah, you know what? we still remember the days when we could actually afford a decent lifestyle before Kamala Harris came in and groceries went up 22%. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that matters to people. It really, really matters. And so now I'm looking at the stock market today and oh my goodness, right? You look at the stock market and there's all this excitement, there's all this enthusiasm because we really can make America great again. And there's so many industries that will benefit from this. The economy overall will benefit from this. It's one of the reasons I keep saying you want to be investing. You want to be in this market right now. Quick reminder to go over to 76 Research, our financial website, where you can get a whole lot of information about financial markets and what stocks we like to invest in. Lots of different content there. Just a quick look at our top financial pick, up 24%, utility up 24%, real estate up 23%. You get the picture. It's important to put yourself and your financial future first. You can do that at 76 Research, just $1. It costs just $1 with code word dollar, $1 a month for the first 2 months. 76research.com. I'll see you there. You know, I'm looking at just the media today, and whether it's MSNBC that's having this inner conflict, and they're having quite a conflict because you get two hosts there that happen to be married to each other, and I think Mika looks like she wants to kill Joe every time he sort of goes down this path of defending conservatives and trying to remind everybody that he says he is a conservative. I think he was a conservative. It's funny how all these conservatives are trying to go back to their roots. They're just racing to get back to their roots, like the one over on The View that started trying to talk some sense into Sunny Houston there on set. And what do you know? It's like full-on fighting on the set of The View, because the conservative that somehow they had brainwashed into being liberal is pointing out the obvious. And Sunny's not going to take that. Oh, no, you can't actually say the obvious. You can't have any gut reaction to anything that's normal on The View, for goodness sakes. Let's take a listen to this clip right here. Alyssa Farah and Sunny Houston.
And finally, we talk a lot about these different demographics and these assumptions of where they're going to go. Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border.
It's
the border
misogyny.
crisis is on their...
You heard that? She's piping in with misogyny. Alyssa's right.
Doorstep. And they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
That's what that was.
The lessons are not
Knock, knock. Who's there? Oh my gosh, it's Whoopi.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Whoopi's trying to interject herself into this. I think she's kind of spent at this point, right? She spent so much time trying to convince people you cannot vote for Donald Trump under any circumstances because he's going to lock up all the gays. I mean, I'm hearing somebody who is gay and very proud of being gay is actually in line for the position as Secretary of State, Rick Grinnell, under Donald Trump. Okay, so Whoopi, you know, that's just, it's so infuriating and wrong. And so they look at the fringe media, like yours truly over here, and they think that we're spouting all this nonsense. Somehow I was part of the problem because I actually showed the full video clip of Joe Biden seemed really lost at that G8 summit. Remember that? I mean, he's just out of it. He's so lost. And if you showed this, you were somehow the problem. We were editing clips in false ways. They accused us of all kinds of things while they sit there and they spoon feed the public all kinds of misinformation day in and day out with no sense of responsibility at all. So here's another clip. More fights on the set of The View.
Let me just make my point here. So you have people talking about, well, how did he win Michigan? Because Democrats are saying, oh, she should have talked more about Gaza. No, union halls were empty. Dearborn went for Donald Trump. This is not about a micro issue like Gaza. It's people saying the cost of living is too high. The wages are too low. My life felt better under him. And I know what we'll say. Well, Goldman Sachs says the economy will do better under her. The analysts at UPenn and Wharton.
We'll see.
Nobody who is struggling to make ends meet at the table, like how am I going to pay this bill, cares what Wharton professors say about the economy.
With misinformation.
One more thing I want to say. This issue of abortion, which I hope we can...
Okay, so she's saying, Sunny Houston, that they were bombarded with misinformation. So if you think that economic times are tight, that's because of misinformation? Wow. I mean, I don't know how much they're paying you at The View, but clearly you're really out of touch. Really, really out of touch. Let's go back to our handy little graphic and we can look at these inflation numbers and you can see how out of touch these people are. Sunny Houston wants you to think that all these numbers above my left-hand shoulder are somehow misinformation. Listen, guys, people don't have as much money because inflation is eating it up. You can't go on vacation and stay in the same kind of room or fly on the same kind of flight. You can't go out to eat as much because it's going to cost that much more. You have to be careful what you're going to give your kids in their school lunch because the price has gone up to the tune of 70%. I mean, this is really, it's really just getting to be nauseating that they're so out of touch with this reality that they're going to tell you it's misinformation, disinformation. This is exactly what they were doing. For example, I will share with you what the New York Times was trying to say. The morning of, the New York Times was also presenting it as some kind of misinformation, disinformation, because they were actually suggesting if he won, then it would be because he doubled down on the transgender stuff, using transgenders as scapegoats. That's wrong. They also said, you know, because he had that ad where he said, Kamala Harris is for they, them. Donald Trump is for you. I'm sorry, that one wrote itself, right? It wrote itself. And then you've got this. Prices climbed, the New York Times writes, just 2.1% in the month of September, over a year earlier. Well, that's some choice cherry-picking words. I mean, they've been going up every single month. The 2.1%, that's compared to last year. But you know what? They went up in October, and they went up, well, in September and in August and July and June. We can keep going back. I mean, all the way to 9-point-something% they were going up about a year after he came to office. I mean, this is why cumulatively it's so bad. And guess what? Wages have not gone up that much. I mean, under Donald Trump, in the last go around, you had wages going up the most they had been up since the days of JFK. So they just don't get it. They're trying to say, oh, but the economy's great, and hey, the economy grew 2.8%. I'm going to tell you what, if the economy is that great, why is it that the Federal Reserve came out today and announced that they are cutting rates by a quarter point? Why is it that in September they cut by a full freaking 50 basis points? Like they haven't done that in some 2 decades or more. I mean, these are big, big moves out of the Federal Reserve, and they're coming for a reason. They're coming because the economy is actually not doing that great. And there is a lot of inflation. And look, they're going to have to continue fighting that. I mean, that's one of the problems. But in this new day and age, it's one of the reasons why I keep telling you, go over to 76 Research. Listen, just get the free stuff if nothing else. You're looking at this market that's on fire. And Rob and I have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of insight into the sectors and the companies, the specific opportunities that are going to do really, really well for you in this environment. So I just encourage you, I'm going to put this up on the screen. You can go and get the research, the 76 report at least, with code word dollar, DOLLAR. Just use code dollar and you will get that for $1 a month for the first couple of months. You get all the names, the model portfolios. Those are very special. We have an income builder portfolio. I think we saw it in the graphic there. We have the income builder, we have the American resilience, we have an inflation protection portfolio. You can get them all, as well as any new ones that are coming on board. You can get them all with the Founders Club. But go to 76 Research and do me this favor. If nothing else, at least get yourself the free stuff, because it's important right about now. I think we are on the cusp of a lot of good things that are about to happen, economically speaking. I think you're going to have some adults in charge, some people who actually understand the economy and understand business for a change. Imagine that. And that's going to be meaningful. So again, 76research.com. The Chicago protests are going on. Did you see these overnight? Take a peek.
All the system stands for! All the system stands for!
I'm not even sure what they're saying there, but they love to protest, right? So there's a few protesters out there. We know that a lot of people are crying on TikTok and this sort of thing. It's all kind of silly. I mean, I don't know. How do you have a strong country? We don't ever want to go to war, but certainly, we wouldn't be able to, because people can't even get up and go to school the day after an election like this. That's kind of bad. And you've got some really irresponsible lawmakers out there, like the guy who used to date Fang Fang. Remember him, Eric Swalwell? And he's writing this. I mean, this is kind of heinous, I think. Not going quietly. You're not either. Let's get loud and let's get it going. So are they taking directions from Eric Swalwell, the guy who had a thingamajig with Fang Fang? I mean, they had to get the FBI involved in everything because she turned out to be a Chinese spy. I mean, a Chinese spy. And he's saying, get loud. Let's get going. Hey, guess what, guys? Donald Trump won. Fair and square. So, Eric, you know what? I would recommend you get with the program. I would recommend you get with the program really, really fast. You know who's getting with the program pretty fast? That would be the DOJ. In fact, they've sent Jack Smith packing. Jack Smith, who had a couple of cases, right? Those cases, federal cases. They made a federal case, 2 of them, out of it for Donald Trump. Well, he is bye-bye. Bye-bye. That's all going away. Because Donald Trump is now back in action in a pretty massive way, and he had the support of the Supreme Court, all of that really mattering. But there's one other person out there who I guess just doesn't really understand how this all works. Letitia James is still really rabid. And I can't wait to show you, because the lawyer that's representing Donald Trump is a little tired of Letitia James. That would be one Mike Davis, and he's an interesting guy. And he went on to Benny Johnson's show, my friend Benny, and had some choice words. Remember who we're talking about here, right? Letitia James, just to jog your memory.
He's called me venomous.
We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City.
He's called me disgraceful.
Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. An illegitimate president and an illegitimate
called me radical.
Listen, yes, we know he's crazy. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of let it sink in. She's also the one that said, oh, too male, too pale, too stale, too male, too pale, right? Well, Benny had Mike on the show today, and he was pretty direct.
Let me just say this to Big Tish James, the New York Attorney General. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term, because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time, and we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights, and I promise you that. So think long and hard before you want to violate President Trump's constitutional rights or any other American's constitutional rights.
Okay, so there was a little color in there and some off-color language, but you get the point, right? So he doesn't have a whole lot of use for her right now. She wasn't very magnanimous. I mean, again, think about the federal cases being dropped. Jack Smith goes home packing, but Letitia, she's out swinging. She's primed. She's ready. Letitia James, ladies and gentlemen, is ready for war.
And lastly, I congratulate the President-elect Donald Trump. And if possible, we will work with his administration. But we will not compromise our values or our integrity or our principles. We did not expect this result, but we are prepared to respond to this result. And my office has been preparing for several months, because we've been here before. We faced this challenge before, and we used the rule of law to fight back. And we are prepared to fight back once again. Because as the Attorney General of this great state, it is my job to protect and defend the rights of New Yorkers and the rule of law. And I will not shrink from that responsibility.
So she is clearly already gearing up for some kind of fight, some kind of major showdown right now. That would be one Letitia James, who just wants you to know, she's put hundreds of cases up again. I mean, we're so glad that that's where the taxpayer dollars are going in the state of New York. Hundreds of cases against Donald Trump.
You see, between 2019 and 2021, the Office of the Attorney General took nearly 100 legal actions against the previous Trump administration, including when he attempted to cap the state and local tax, and when he sought to eliminate funds and grants for law enforcement officers here in the state of New York. We fought to preserve DACA and protect the Affordable Care Act. We fought to prevent a question about citizenship from being on the census because we were concerned about the impact of funding, the lack of funding to the state of New York and how it would affect these programs.
You can't ask if you're a citizen on a census. Again, let's just go back to reality here. I mean, these people are so far out in left field, there's no reality. I mean, Jack Smith got handed some reality, but Letitia thinks she can do her own thing. What, is New York going to just go off on its own? It's not how it works, lady, okay? I realize you want to have a political career, but I also realize that your political career is actually quite in jeopardy because they're about to hand you some really bad news. Letitia James is about to learn that her case against the president-elect, the former president of the United States, in which she tried to go after him for the sole reason of politics alone, that case is about to be reversed in the Court of Appeals in New York. So guess what, Letitia? You're kind of out. You're out of place. Absolutely out of place. I'll tell you, I've had a busy week right here on the Trish Regan Show. You know it. We were live for 8 hours. Can you believe that, on election night? And I'll tell you, I need my sleep and I need my vitamins. That's just the way it works. And I'm so happy I do get my vitamins from one of our great show sponsors, Balance of Nature. You can go to balanceofnature.com today. Use code word Trish. You're going to get 50% off. 50%, this is like the best offer they've ever had. And I think they want to make sure that you get the opportunity, especially as we come to the year end and you're going to be going to all the festivities, Thanksgiving, Christmas, etc. Listen, you got to put yourself first. You got to take care of yourself. It's something I advise everyone always. Give them a ring, 1-800-246-8751. Again, 1-800-246-8751, or go to balanceofnature.com today. Use code word Trish. Really wonderful stuff. So Letitia James is going to keep doing what Letitia James is trying to keep doing. She wants to keep making Trump the target, just like the protesters want to keep making Trump the target. But you know, at some point, you got to own up to the reality that nobody actually wanted Biden or Harris, because guess what? They didn't vote for her.
So you asked, are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming in 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything on the east side there.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not one county?
No, none. So the interesting thing here is Trump's been given quite a mandate. And that's why there's this opportunity. Because the country is with him. I mean, think about it. If you consider whether or not, he could have gotten a second term back when, in 2020, in some ways, if he had gotten it, I don't think that people would have fully appreciated him. But now he's coming in after 4 years of some really bad stuff. And he has the chance to remake America. He's got some really good people around him. News just broke right now that Donald Trump is tapping none other than Susie Weil, who was his campaign manager. People aren't that familiar with her. I like the fact that Susie is always kind of in the background. She doesn't want to go out and do all the interviews. She's running the show, and heck, you need somebody, right? You need somebody to be doing that. Well, that is her role, and she is an incredible campaign manager. She won this thing big time for him. Take a look at the news there, just crossing. They're in the New York Times. This was somewhat expected. You've got Donald Trump tapping campaign co-manager Susie Wiles as White House Chief of Staff. She's a big-time political operative right there in Florida. And she really brought discipline to that campaign. And that discipline at the end of the day was another thing that helped get him to the finish line. It's great to have all these ideas, but then how do you actually bring them to fruition? He's got great ideas. But great ideas need to be surrounded by people who can get stuff done. And Susie was that person. So Susie on campaign night, he asked her, he said, hey, you want to say a few words? And she said, no. And he's like, oh, you're suddenly so shy. Well, she's just not a public person. And she was running the scene behind everything. She's running the show behind the scenes. And she's now going to continue to do that there at the White House. Can I point something out, to everybody who says he's sexist? Susie Wiles is a woman. And she's going to be the White House Chief of Staff. So I'm a little tired, if you would, of everybody saying, he's this, he's that, the other. I'm telling you, he's an equal opportunist. If you're good, that's what matters. Susie Wiles becoming the very first woman to take up the role of Chief of Staff in the White House. He called her the Ice Maiden. Do you remember that? The Ice Maiden is now ahead of his team. He said at that time, Susie likes to stay in the back. Let me tell you, we call her the Ice Maiden. She's not in the background anymore. Named as his new right-hand woman, President Trump said, this is the statement, Susie Wiles just helped me achieve one of the greatest political victories in American history and was an integral part of both my 2016 and 2020 successful campaigns. Susie is tough, smart, innovative, and is universally admired and respected. Susie, he says, will continue to work tirelessly to make America great again. It is a well-deserved honor to have Susie as the first ever female chief of staff in United States history. I have no doubt that she will make our country proud. Well, she certainly made him proud. I mean, you think about that. It's an interesting woman. She's a grandmother. She likes to bake. She likes to bake. She's actually a bird watcher as well. And she's got clearly some tremendous political instincts. I mean, as does he. And she gets stuff done. In fact, a lot of people have said this comeback is really attributable so much to Susie, to her, because she was so interested in having this direction and in having this discipline and creating this machine. Think about what they were up against. I mean, hey, look back at 2020 and all those mail-in ballots, and look at what the Republicans were able to do in terms of the ground game and narrowing that spread. That's a big part of what Susie was looking at. Plus, she managed to just get everything in line. Think about the 7 rallies that he was doing in the final moments. Donald Trump did 7 rallies compared and contrast to Kamala's 2. It's like you put people like Susie Wiles, Donald Trump, and Elon Musk, don't forget Elon, together, and that's a recipe for greatness. I don't know how you compete with that in the good old-fashioned Democrat circles. I mean, you got Kamala Harris with her word salad, afraid to go out and talk to the media, can't get anybody to come to her rallies. And then you get the machine of Susie and Trump and Elon there too. This is amazing news. The first woman chief of staff coming from the guy who they say is such a sexist man. It's kind of cool, right? It's kind of cool when you think of it. It's also kind of cool when you think of and you know just exactly how much can get done. And a lot. Well, let's take a look here. You know, Susie's in the background here, as Trump said, that we've been given this unprecedented mandate to accomplish so much.
America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. We have taken back control of the Senate. Wow, that's good. And the Senate races in Montana, Nevada, Texas, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, were all won by the MAGA movement. They helped so much.
Yeah. So Susie was a big part of that, very big part of that. You know what else? I mentioned this earlier in the show, and just the intel that I'm getting. There's a few people up for Secretary of State, including Pompeo, you know him, including somebody named Pat O'Brien, and also including Rick Grinnell. And I mentioned Rick Grinnell because he's tremendously talented. I've known him a long time. He was a Fox News contributor. He used to come on my show a lot. He was also the ambassador to Germany. He too can get stuff done. He's very, very, very strong at what he does. He's very smart. He's a very, very capable person. And it's just interesting because he actually happens to be gay. So you have a woman coming in as chief of staff, possibly a gay Secretary of State. And I just think it's like, you know, trust me, Donald Trump's not checking any boxes. He doesn't want to check boxes. He doesn't need to check boxes. He's not putting someone in a job because this person is female or this person is this or that or the other. No. He's putting people in because they're good at what they do. And isn't that what we are as a society and what we want to get back to? The meritocracy that has made America what it is? I mean, wow. So I think we need to get away from the labels. We need to get away from the branding. We need to actually do what we can to just be competitive and to be smart. I want to point out that the Federal Reserve cut rates today, ladies and gentlemen. Jerome Powell coming out and saying that they would cut those rates by another 0.25 percentage point in order to kind of free up some money. I mean, my concern and things like that is always that you're going to have more inflation. But listen, you know, if we can get the growth, and I think these policies, they're going to be so growth oriented that we will get them. We might not need the Fed to do as much as it's doing. Anyway, the Fed chief was asked today if he is going to stay on when Donald Trump comes in. And would he stay there if Donald Trump asked him to leave? Don't forget, he was appointed by Donald Trump, but these things are typically not that political. Jerome Powell I came from a business background. I always liked that about him. But, I think he kind of lost his way. I think he was heavily influenced, this is my opinion, by the likes of Janet Yellen, and they kept trying to tell us it was transitory inflation, and they kept cutting rates, and they kept printing money. And hey, you look at that inflation chart, Jerome was part of that. Jerome was certainly part of it. Anyway, let's go and hear what he had to say when he was asked, are you going to stay on?
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
Well, you know what? I kind of appreciate him shutting her down like that. Nope. Well, here's the way the rules are. Like, actually, Donald Trump can't just say, Jerome, it's time to leave. So that would be kind of a hard move to pull off. He might criticize him. I mean, he certainly criticized him, even to me on my show, when he wasn't moving on rates. He was criticizing him then. I'm sure he'll criticize him again. But Jerome's probably not entirely thrilled that Trump is coming back. But hey, reminder, if you're worried about interest rates going down and thus the money printing continuing, I would recommend you look at gold as a possible diversification strategy. When you do, call my friends over at American Hartford Gold. You can call them at 1-844-495-1115, or you can simply text my name, Trish, to 65532, or go to Trish Loves Gold. We got a great offer going on for friends of the show here. Just use my name, a little name dropping doesn't hurt. Up to $15,000 right now in free silver for friends of the show with qualifying offers. So again, text Trish to 65532 or go to trishlovesgold.com. I think there's a lot happening, and there's a lot of opportunity in the markets right now. It's why I keep saying you got to invest. Go to 76research.com. Use code word dollar for more on how and what to invest in right now. There's some good stuff coming. And I'm for one excited about it. So excited I may take some extra vitamins. I'm telling you, Balance in Nature is who I go to. Balanceinnature.com. Code word Trish. 1-800-246-8751. 1-800-246-8751. Balance in Nature. We like our sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show because they help us do what we do, and I'm able to bring you this show for free. So when you support our sponsors, you're supporting me, you're supporting the show, and so it's win-win-win. Plus, you're taking care of yourself, which is always a pretty good thing to do, don't you think? We've got so much to talk about in the coming days. The reality is this. This change is in part because of all of you, because you have sought out new places for information, because you're not going to buy the bogus nonsense that they keep trying to spout there on The View or on MSNBC or on the network news programs or even in the New York Times. You realize what's at stake. And so tell everyone, tell your friends, we're here. We got good stuff coming. We got to talk about who's going to be coming in. There's some major stuff that's going to be unveiled, and you got some smart people that are going to be in charge for a change. So I can't wait. I, for one, cannot wait. I will see you back here live on the program again tomorrow. Until then, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a comment. I do read them all. I'll see you here live tomorrow.